It's your open source advocate, and I'm back with another video, and today I wanted to talk about another speed test tracker. So I've covered a few of these in the past, and one of the ones that I covered previously that I really liked was called Docker Speedtest Grafana, and it was exactly what you think. It was a Docker running thing that ran speed tests, and it put it in Grafana and showed you some nice charts. But after I made that video, maybe 6 months or a year, got to where it wasn't working correctly, and I'm just not sure what was wrong with it. You know, not knowing how to fix it was kind of a problem because people ask questions when they find my videos. So I wanted to put a new one up, and I've been using one for a while. So this is called Speedtest Tracker, and the one you want to find is this one that has Alex Justison, I think is the name. So Speedtest Tracker is what it's called. There's another one that he forked his off of, and then he started making it better after the other one went a little bit unmanaged for a while. So first, I know you guys love for me to show you what these things look like, so I want to do that as well. But yeah, Speedtest Tracker is pretty cool, and it runs really well. And I've been running kind of the old version for a while that I was talking about that's abandoned now, and he's taken it and made it even better. So I'll kind of show you the difference between the two projects as well. So we're going to go through what they look like, how they function, and then I'll get into the install, which I know a lot of you always ask me, show me what it looks like first. So I'm going to do that today, and we'll get into it right after this. I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers and all of my patrons over at Patreon. Seriously, you guys make this so worth it for me to do these videos every week. I really truly enjoy it, and I just can't say thank you enough. If you're enjoying these videos, subscribe. Let YouTube know that I'm doing a good job by subscribing to the channel. Plus, you'll get notified when I have new videos coming out. And finally, if you're enjoying what I'm doing, give it a like. Just click on that thumbs up, and that way YouTube knows that you like it, and they'll pass it along to other people that might enjoy my content as well. I really appreciate it. Thank you again. Let's get started. Alright, speed test trackers are really great tools, and they're really useful in your home, especially in your home or your business. But if you're paying for a home internet connection, and let's say you're like me, you pay for 400 gigabit, which recently just went to 500, or 400 megabit, which recently went to 500 megabit for me, which is awesome. Then you want to know that you're getting that pretty consistently. Now, I had Eero in the past, and I've talked about this before, and one of the things that I liked was the Eero app would occasionally run a speed test, and I could see those results. After Amazon bought them, they kind of screwed it up and took away the graphs and the charts and the information. It was just kind of a, here's your last thing, or your average speed. You know, it was just not as great, so wasn't real happy with it anyways. But when I switched over to using my own equipment, I wanted something where I could track my speed tests. So like I said, I had done Docker Speedtest Grafana, and after it kind of went under, I was looking for something else. And there's some really good ones. There's Open Speed Test, and there's some Libre Speed, I think, is another one that I've covered in the past. And those you really just go to the site, click it, and let it run a speed test, and you can kind of see the gauges and what you end up with. But it's manual. So I was really looking for something that would run on a schedule, and that's what these things do. So that's why I really like them. So the first time I found Speedtest Tracker, I thought, well, let me check it for a while and see how it runs. And I've been running it for about 6 or 8 months, I think. But you can see here that it keeps track, and it gives you a pretty good history here. So I've got about a week of history, I think. And you can see I'm paying for 500 megabyte. But here I noticed about this portion of the week, I think, that it was pretty low, but I was in a lot of online meetings, and it was still like 380 megabit per second, so it was plenty for me to do my meetings and stuff. But I was like, okay, I'm paying for this, and then I'm seeing these giant drops and this weirdness going on here. So I was like, what's happening? And when I saw that, I was like, first thought was, okay, let me call my internet service provider, like, what's going on? And so that guy went through all of his troubleshooting steps. He's like, everything looks fine on our end. And then I realized that right where this started, I happened to switch out my router. So I switched out my router hardware, and in the middle of it, I was trying to straighten out all of my Ethernet cables because I have kind of a wild network around my home. I've run Ethernet through the house, and I've got 4 ports at the wall where the incoming signal comes in for the modem and the router, and then that goes out to different parts of my house. And when I was doing all that cable straightening, I pulled a bunch of the Ethernet cables out, and I brought a bunch of extras in with me, not knowing how many I was going to need. And I think I put in a bad one. So I think I've identified it. But after I called him and I was talking to this poor guy, and he worked with me for like 40 minutes trying to figure out what was wrong, and he's like, I just can't see anything, I realized, oh, this is about the day that I switched out those devices. And I thought, okay, it's either the device or the cable, and I was really hoping it was the cable, so it was, thank goodness. But yeah, this told me, like, I'm not getting what I expect. Something is wrong on my network. So I guess the good thing about this was First I called the ISP, they checked, nothing wrong on their end, okay. Something weird's going on my network, let me find it. And then so I had to start kind of running through that normal troubleshooting stuff. So this was really super useful, and I thought, okay, I should cover this for the channel because people would like to see this. So here I'm getting my upload, here's my upload way down here. Here's my download, so you can see, and now it's back up, you know, you can see it's up here around 500 when it runs. And then here's my ping times, so I'm getting kind of my latency stuff, and you can see an overview up here at the top, which is pretty nice. This is a really clean, simple interface. I can run a manual test if I want to by clicking the button, and then just kind of be patient because it takes time for that to run, and then this thing will eventually update and show you kind of your new numbers. But just a little bit of information about kind of how this one works. And then he's got kind of bar charts to show you like what's going on across the week and where you seeing issues and things like that as well. So little bits of information that can help you figure out, do I need to start troubleshooting, or is something really wrong that I'm not realizing is wrong? So when I went back to the project and found it, I was like, wow, this hasn't been updated in like a year. And that was one of the most recent updates. And I was like, okay, well, let me see. So I started reading the README, and it pointed me to another project that has now picked this up. So if we go back over here, you can see that's this project here. And if you look, he's got 2 months, 4 months. Last week, he made an update. This is the third week of January, 2023, just to give you some reference. Last week, last month. So yeah, he's 5 days ago. So he's still making updates to this project, which is awesome. And it's really nice. So he's really updated the UI. So this is the one that I had. This is the one I've been running for a while. Now this is the one that I just spun up. And you can see I've got about 3 tests. I'll kick off another test here. So it kicks off the test, and then down here in the bottom right, it tells you, hey, the test is running. Awesome. And then as we kind of look here, I'll go through the install and everything with you in a minute, but this is the dashboard, right? So we're getting the dashboard information. We should see this update here in just a minute when it kind of comes back around, and everything should be ready for us to kind of say, hey, this thing's got another point, and you'll see the graph update a little bit, I'm sure, when it gets that new point. I think it's already got it. In fact, here it is. So yeah, because I had 3, this is now 4. So yeah, you can see kind of what the ping times do. So you can see this nice little line chart. Up here, he's got your upload way down here. And if you hover over the point, I think there you go, to give you the actual information. And then over here, you got the same thing on the download. So my downloads are being pretty consistent, and the uploads are being pretty consistent right now. And then down here a little bit further, he's got jitter. So I'm not sure what jitter means exactly, but it is useful to know it for some people's networks. So you can kind of see where my jitter is kind of landing here, and it's got the keys. So this is a really nice layout, a really nice dashboard. But let's say you want to look at the different information as it's been run. So you can click here on the left, and it'll take you to this page that has a table, and it's going to be paged out. Now you can change how many things you see on the screen, of course, or you can just kind of go through the pages one at a time. But you can kind of see that last information and what's going on and whether or not it's good or bad. So pretty nice. Again, a nice little setup here for you to kind of see what's happening. Now up in the upper right, you have this kind of A. This is because I'm the admin, and up here you can toggle night mode. So right now I've just got this plugin turned on my browser. So here, I'll turn it off. It's going to get very bright for a second. I apologize. Oh, there we go. Yep, sorry. There's bright. Okay, now we're in day mode, so I had night mode set already. But there you go. If you like the bright mode, there it is. I'm going to turn it back off for you guys so I don't blind you forever. But yes, so it does have night mode, everything like that. And then you've also got who's logged in, and then sign out, of course. And then you've got this little bell icon that will give you notifications. So you can actually set up some thresholds and things like that for notifications, which is great. And there's also email notifications, so we'll get to that. As we continue down, we can kind of see general settings. So as you go through here, you can change the name of it if you want to, whatever you want to call it, you know. So my speeds, if that's what we want to call it. I am in the America Chicago time zone. It was set to UTC. All I did was drop this down and start typing. So I could type America, let's see, here we go, Anchorage. I can switch it to Anchorage time zone if I want to. I don't really need to. So America/Chicago. As long as you know what your time zone is, if you start typing, it should pop up. He's got a nice drop down for you there to find it. Here's the date time format. And then this is the part I really like. So this lets me set how often I want to run this. Now, if you set it to run too often, a lot of times the speed test system will start blocking you because you're pounding their system too much. But just know, you can set this with cron, and he even gives you a little thing that says, hey, here is a thing that will help you set this in cron or get your time. Now, it changed my tab, so try to open that in a new tab. But it comes up with just every 5 minutes, and it tells you like what you're doing. So if I move over here and I say, let's just set it what he has by default. He's got it */30 *****. And I think the star and the /30 go together. So let me go back there. We'll just go back in. I didn't even open in a new tab. Look at that. And then we're just going to change this to /30, that's me, right? So I set 30 minutes. I think he had it as 5 actually originally as well. So he had it every 5 minutes. I think that's too often personally, but you could go back and just do star. And then we could do /20. So it's going to be every 20 hours, it's going to do it every minute. That's kind of weird. Don't do that. So just leave it at /30 and you have every 30 minutes. I like this. This works for me. You could set this at 15 if you want to. It's really easy. Just change the 30 to 15 and then copy this and then go back to your page and just erase this and paste it in and hit save. Now, if you have a special speed test server you want to use and you know the ID of the server, you can put that in here. I don't have one, so I didn't change it. I'm just letting it pick the best one for me. So I do have authentication enabled. You can disable it if you want to, but I think it's better to have authentication enabled myself on anything that you're running in your home. It's always just better to do that. All right, that's the settings. So now we're going to go to the InfluxDB part. All it asks is, do you want to use the settings and enable it? I'm not, so just be aware you can. If you know what InfluxDB is, it's just a really fast DB for getting graphing and information and scientific information out. It's pretty awesome, but I mean, if you want to use it, go for it. All right, notifications. So this is the cool stuff. If we turn this on, I'll get notifications up here on the little bell. Now, the next thing is, it's like, hey, do you want to see notifications for every speed test that you run? Notify on threshold failures. This is probably the one that you would want to set. And then you can say, test it. So it pops up over here and it says test database notification sent. And hopefully we'll get it. Yeah, we get it. There's a notification right there. There's our test notification. We can clear that out. We're done. Great. So you're getting your notifications in the system here. We've turned those on. Next thing is email, right? You want to have email notifications. So again, same thing, right? Notify on threshold problems. And right here, we're going to say it's add recipients and the email address. Let's put in my email. And maybe I need to save. Also, you have the option for Telegram. That one I'm not going to set up, but you guys can run through that if you want to. Next, we have the thresholds area. So this is a really important area because you may not want to get an email every 5 minutes whenever your speed test runs. So here we can say enable thresholds, and then it's going to let us know, like, what do we want to set as the threshold here? I'm just wondering if this is going to let me set like below the download limit that I would want or above. I'm not really sure, like, what is this threshold telling me? So I'm going to set this at 500 megabits per second. That means it should give me some notification if it hits a number that's below that. We will find out. So I'm going to hit save. Next thing we have up is users. So right here is, you'll see that it's a default user that gets set up. You can go in and edit that, and I suggest you do the same when you set up the system, but you can add other users as well if you want them to have access to this page. Then you've got documentation, donate, which is always important. So let's click on the donate button here. So become a sponsor, which basically says, hey, I like what you're doing. I'd love to see you just keep doing it. So please keep everything going. And really, for me, that's awesome. So you can see he's got a few sponsors here. That's great. So if you like this project, if you'd like to see it keep going, definitely think about doing this. So because I like to put my money where my mouth is, let's go do a $10 a month. Oh, select. Duh. Okay. So we hit select and it says due today, $6.38. That's fine. No. Let's do it. Boom. All right. We are supporting this application. So that's awesome. I love doing these kind of things. So there we go. That guy's going to get a little bit of money for his effort. I think that's great. I'm excited that he's putting this together and keeping it running. So I hope you guys will get out there and try it. And if you like it, do the same. Think about donating. You don't have to donate $10 a month. You can donate a one-time thing. Just do whatever makes you feel right and makes you feel good. But yeah, that's what keeps open source going, is the people saying, I love what you're doing and I want to support that. All right. We're back to the tracker. You've seen all the stuff here. Now I know you want to know, all right, how do I install it? You've shown me all the good stuff. Show me how to install it and get it running. So let's go do that. All right, so we are going to go back to his website here, and he's got a documentation site, which is pretty great. So here's installation. So first thing he tells you is this is going to be Docker or Docker Compose. You're going to have a PUID and a PGID. He tells you why these are set this way. You've got HTTP ports that you're going to forward, so we'll look at that in just a minute. And then he's got a Docker run file if you want that. If you want to use MariaDB and MySQL, he's got a little bit of extra stuff there, and then same thing for Postgres. So it'll be up to you guys how you kind of do this. Here's the Docker Compose, and again, Docker Compose with MariaDB or MySQL, and here's Postgres. So again, very much up to you guys how you run this thing, but for me, I'm just going to run it like this. I think it's fine. Nothing for me to get too excited about. If it crashes, I can always come back and fix it and just put one of these in. But I think this is a nice way to start. So we have this Docker Compose file. We're just going to grab this. We're going to copy it right here. And I'm going to switch back over to Tabby. So this is the machine that I'm on. So if I do an ls, you can see I've got this Docker Compose.yaml and I've got this folder called config. So we're just going to go and start up another machine, or we're going to log into a different machine. So this one is my .42 machine. So I'm going to go get on my .154 machine. That's a different server that also runs Docker. And I'm going to make the text a little bigger for you guys. So first thing we want to do, if you don't have a Docker folder made already, it's fine. If you'll just do this command, it'll get things set up. But if you need Docker, Docker CE installed, if you want Nginx Proxy Manager because you want to access this thing from outside your network for some reason, you could do that as well. But I have a script out there. In the show notes in the description, I will have it all written up, step by step what to do, including getting Docker and Docker CE installed with that script. Very easy, very straightforward, no problem there. So just know that. But assuming you have Docker and Docker CE ready to go now, in the server where you want to set this up, you're going to do mkdir-p docker / and you can call the next folder whatever you want, but I'm going to call it Speedtest Tracker. So this says, create the directory structure I'm telling you and check first to see if this exists. If it does, then just create this folder inside of it. If it doesn't, also create this folder and then create this folder inside of it. So that's what's going on with this particular command. So I'm going to hit enter and I should be able to do ls docker and we'll be able to see it. So here's Speedtest Tracker right here. So we've gone and done that, made it, no problem. So we're going to do cd and we're going to cd into that folder. We're going to change into that folder, docker / Speedtest Tracker. There we go. I'll clear this out. So now we're going to create our Docker Compose file. We're going to do nano docker-compose.yml. Be careful that you spell everything correctly here. And we're going to paste in that stuff. I use Control, Shift, and V like Victor to paste, but you can also use right click and paste in most terminal emulators. If you're on Windows and you're using PuTTY, just when you right click, it'll just paste. So just be aware of that. But there we go. We've got everything in here. Now there's a few things we're going to want to change, I'm sure. So the first thing is version 3.3. Great. Speedtest Tracker is what it's going to be called. The container name is going to be called Speedtest Tracker. And we've got this thing that's got our ports. So I know 8080 is a very common port. The way it works in Docker is anything on the left side of the colon you can change. So these two things you can change. And down here on the path to directory will change. Everything else we're going to leave the same. But because 8080 is a common port and I might already have an application using that, I want to change it to a port that's not quite so common. So I'm going to change this to 8981. It's just a port that I'm picking out of the air that I don't think is in use on my system. For this one, I'm going to do 8943 for the SSL port. Okay. And then down here, I'm going to go and I'm going to just, again, take this out. And I'm going to do /. That means put this in the current folder. So wherever this file, this Docker Compose file is, I also want this config folder to be created inside of that same location. The reason I do this is that I can then zip up my Docker folder, which has all of my Docker applications inside of it, and they all have their stuff inside of that. And I get everything zipped up and I can just back it up really easily and then bring all my stuff right back up online very fast. So I get backups in a really easy way by doing this. All right, so I'm going to do Control-O to save my changes, and then I'm going to just check a couple of things. So, one, make sure you don't change the port on the right. It should be port 80 and port 443 on the right. Next, make sure that we have 1000 and 1000. Now, I don't think my other container is called Speedtest Tracker, so it should be fine. But I am running that original version, and I think it's just called Speedtest, so we'll see. If it gives me an error, I'll come back and change it. But Make sure you don't have any other containers that are also named Speedtest Tracker. You don't want to have that on the same server. It won't work. It'll give you an error. Other than that, we should be set. So we're going to do Control O one more time, save, and then Control X to exit. And I'll clear this out. And we're going to do Docker compose. So it's docker-compose up-d. This is the command that says, okay, Docker, go grab the stuff that's in this Docker compose file and bring up that container and then run it in the background as a daemon so that when I get out of this terminal, it doesn't stop on me. It'll just stay running for me. But then I like to run a second command. So I'm going to run ampersand, ampersand, if I can find it. There we go. And then I run docker-compose logs-f. And the reason I do this is that once it's up and running, this next command will run. It'll show me the logs. And if there's any errors, I'll see those in the console and I can go and try to fix things. So I'm just going to hit enter. It's going to start pulling down all of the pieces that it needs for this Speedtest Tracker container. It goes pretty fast. It's going to bring it up and running. Should say done, just like that. And then you can see this message right after done that says attaching to the Speedtest Tracker. That's all we're going to get here. So I'm just going to hit Control C to get out of it. And we're just going to clear that out. Now we're going to go back to our browser. We'll open up a new tab and we'll go to our IP of our new server. You should go to the IP of your server. It could be localhost if you're working on the actual machine that you're in front of. If you did it like me with SSH on a server, then use that IP address. And then I'm going to put in 8981. Maybe it just took a second to come up. It took longer than I gave it to come up. So, all right, we're up and running. Great. When you get to this page, the default login is admin@example.com, and the default password is PASSWORD, all lowercase. It is actually called password. So we're going to log in with that. I'm going to tell it not to save. And the first thing I'm going to do is zoom this up for you guys. I know that makes it harder to see everything on the screen at the same time, but I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to scroll to users. I'm going to click. Here I can see that default admin user. I'm going to click on the little pencil to edit. And I want to change this to my name or my email address. You can also change the one up here to your name if you want to. And then we can put in a strong password. Okay, something that's not easy to guess. And we're going to do save changes. So again, I'm saying don't save. And now I'm going to come here and I'm going to say sign out. And it's going to give me this message. Now, it did this to me the first time as well. Don't freak out. Give it a minute. It's saving the changes and then it's kind of resetting things in the background. It does come back up in just a second. It just takes a second. Give it about 30 seconds. Once you've done that, just go back to the original IP you went to and it should be right back here. And now you should be able to use your email address and your password that you set for that admin user account. And you can even say, remember me if you want to. I'm going to tell this one never. There we go. So now I've got this fresh system up and running and everything is ready to go, honestly. So right here I can tell it, queue up a speed test. And you'll see it says it's queued one and it gives you a little message that says it's queued up the speed test. We'll wait just a few minutes, few seconds. It doesn't take very long. Usually I think it takes about 30 seconds for it to run and it should update the information here. There we go. We've got our updated speed. Here it is, 595. I mean, I'm paying for 500 and they're giving me 600. I have nothing to complain about. So that's pretty awesome. But this is where it starts, and now it will run, like I said, every 5 minutes. So let's go check out our settings first under General. So if you remember, this is just by default. So I could rename this as Mac G Speed. Okay, doesn't matter what you call it. And then we can do America/Chicago if I spell it correctly. We've got our time zone. And then right here, so it does this. So I'm going to copy this because I want to see what it does. And then I'm going to open this in a new tab. And I'm going to replace that with this. So it says every hour. So right now it defaults to every hour. It's completely up to you if that's what you want to keep. I would like to get the every 30 minutes, maybe every 15 minutes even. I also don't want to get blocked from the speed test sites. So you got to be a little bit careful not to set it too often. But by default, it's every hour, which is probably fine for most people. I mean, that's going to be 24 points a day. You do that 7 days a week. You're talking about a lot of points over a week where you can kind of see what your internet's doing. If you're trying to really catch something, you might tighten it down for just a little bit, but just remember to go back and lengthen it back out so that you don't leave it just slamming that site all the time. So we could definitely do like the 30-minute one here, and that's good. And I'll save. So save my changes, of course. And then if we go back to our dashboard, we can queue up another test. Then you can come down and set up your notification settings, your threshold settings, everything like that, just like I showed you already. Alright, so one of the things in the documentation is how to set up the email. So if you want to use SMTP email, you need to come over to the documentation and grab these items here and then put those in your Docker Compose file. So it's pretty easy to do this. We're just going to stick these into the environment variable section. Now if you have an environment variable file, you can use that as well, but this is the stuff that we're going to need. So we're just going to take this and copy it, and we're just going to go down here to the environment variable section of our file. We'll come right out here and we'll just hit enter, and we're going to space out. Remember that YAML files are space sensitive. And we're going to paste here. We'll have to space some of these other things out, but first we want to make sure we put a hyphen in front of each item and a space. So we'll do the same thing here, space it all the way out, and then hyphen space. There we go. So we want to have all of these things set, and what you're going to do is just say mail host, and it isn't mail hog in my case. We're going to use box.fixitdelrio.com. So this needs to be SMTP capable email, and my mail port is 587, and my username is my email address. Now you could use like a no reply if you want to, or any email address that you've got set up. And my password I'll get in a minute and fill that in, but make sure you go grab the correct password for your email so that you can use that as a login. And then finally, we want the actual encryption that we use, which in our case is start TLS. We'll try that. If it doesn't work, we can always come back and make it just TLS. So I'm going to save this, enter, and I'm going to go grab my actual password, and we'll be right back. Alright, so I filled in the password, and I used Control-O and Enter to save, and then Control-X to get out of Nano again. And what we want to do to make those environmental variables take is just do Docker Compose up-D, and then we'll look at the logs just to make sure we don't see anything odd come up. So we'll do Docker Compose logs -f. So it's Docker Compose up-D & Docker Compose logs -f. And again, it lets us know that it's attaching to Speedtest Docker. We'll just give that about 20-30 seconds to start up, because if you remember, it did take a few seconds last time. There we go. It's doing a few things, migrating the database, says everything's set, starting up the queue worker. So things should be getting up and running, and it says notice ready to handle connections. Systemd monitor interval set to 1,000 or 10,000 milliseconds. So that's 10,000 seconds. That's good. All right, so we're going to do Control-C to get out of the logs there. All right, let's go back and we will refresh since we've restarted the server. And let's do another send here. So again, it tells us that it's trying to send the notification, so there's no error happening in the software, but the software is trying to use the SMTP server, and it's not giving feedback. But this time, I got the email. That is awesome. So we've made another step forward, and we've got our email stuff set up and running. We've done everything we need to do to get this up and running, ready to go, and now you've got this site set so that you can see what your speeds are doing on your network. You can keep an eye on your network and make sure you know that you're getting the speeds that you expect. So there's my second data point already, and everything's looking good. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, like, subscribe, tell your friends about it so they can come along on the journey with us, and I'll talk to you next time.